My husband's unjustified actions towards me were not warranted due to the supposed indiscretion of an affair I was accused of. My name is Michael, and I have been married to Jennifer for 17 years, with whom I share a son named Jacob and a daughter called Emily. Lately, Jennifer has been returning home from work late, and tonight was no exception, coming in close to 10 p.m. The kids and I had finished dinner, completed our homework, and put them to bed over an hour ago without any questions about their mother or her absence. This is a new development that left me feeling disheartened. Over the past 2 years, our financial situation has worsened significantly. Despite this, my wife appears unaware, continuing to spend extravagantly as if we had no fiscal concerns whatsoever. I had just settled our latest bills, and we may last for a couple more months before running out of resources. Over the past 2 years, I've been grappling with a potential misstep in my life plan. The specter of a significant issue had been looming, and I couldn't shake the feeling it would eventually impact us. Though I believed it was inevitable, doubts began to surface. I seemed to be lost in my thoughts more frequently, losing track of time. Eventually, standing before me with her arms crossed and a familiar expression of disapproval, she declared, "Michael, I want a divorce." In that moment, I wasn't entirely clear about my emotions. Weighed down by self-doubt and self-loathing, I felt almost insensitive to new feelings. Though the situation was hardly humorous, an odd impulse to suppress laughter surfaced. My wife, who I had shared 17 years with, had just told me our relationship was ending. The foundation we had built together was starting to crumble. A feeling I hadn't felt in some time, almost bringing a sense of release. I glanced at her for a moment, taking one last journey down memory lane to revisit our happier moments. Then back to the present. I excelled more as a programmer than as a manager. Regrettably, in the corporate world, programmers are frequently promoted to become project leaders, then department heads, and ultimately senior management. This is how I became the senior manager of product development, which sounded impressive, but was essentially a glorified sales position. The truth was, at that time, I was the most suitable candidate for the job. I had essentially created our flagship product line single-handedly, nurtured it during its early stages, and guided it through 6 subsequent updates. I knew our product like the back of my hand. When customers asked questions, I had answers. When our staff encountered problems, I knew how to solve them. With a new hairstyle and an expensive suit, I certainly fit the part. As a programmer, I excelled more than in management roles. The standard career path for programmers often leads to becoming project leaders, department heads, and eventually senior management. This progression resulted in me being a senior manager of product development, a title that sounded impressive, but essentially translated into a sales role. In essence, I was most qualified for the position given my significant contributions to our flagship product line, which I had developed largely on my own and nurtured through its various stages up to 6 updates. My extensive knowledge of our product enabled me to answer customer queries effortlessly and resolve staff issues smoothly. A new hairstyle and a costly suit added to the image. Unsurprisingly, I was dismissed from Chicago Technology Solutions. Had I been my own supervisor, I probably would have made the same decision. My attendance at meetings was sporadic, leading to multiple missed deadlines. At that point in time, I wasn't intentionally trying to lose my job, but I also didn't strive to keep it at CTS. For a while, I found myself in a prolonged state of lethargy. It took nearly 3 months for me to recover from this initial depression and make an attempt to progress. This effort, too, was unsuccessful. It took another month for me to find a way out of my predicament, or at least a solution I could agree with. If I didn't have the children, I believe I might have lost my sanity. Their structured routine became my lifeline, helping me regain a sense of optimism. The cycle of breakfast, school, snack, homework, dinner, and bedtime served as a constant guide, gradually leading me towards a more stable life. Over time, I began to accept the role of a stay-at-home parent, handling household responsibilities and driving the kids around. My increased presence at home was warmly reciprocated by the children, making me understand I still mattered. I wasn't completely insignificant. Though my wife might have overlooked the transformation in our family dynamics, I am convinced she didn't notice it. My initial interaction with Jennifer Riley transpired at a mixer I was on the verge of skipping. Despite joining the fraternity primarily for post-graduation prospects, not for college partying, I felt the need to maximize my advantages. Academically, I excelled, but in other aspects, I was merely average height, weight, appearance, and personality. Contrarily, Jennifer had a more appealing average for a woman. She maintained a certain quietness akin to a wallflower. After observing her for quite some time, I finally gathered the nerve to engage in conversation with her. In the beginning, our interactions were short and quiet, yet we exchanged introductions. For several weeks afterward, we scheduled coffee meetings and study times at the library. Nearly 2 months transpired before our first formal date. From that day onward, it turned into the most extraordinary phase of my life. We experienced 15 years of unadulterated joy together. Our relationship developed swiftly, and our engagement was swift as well. Just after graduation, we wed and established ourselves in an apartment in Chicago. We traveled together on the morning and evening trains to our initial jobs. Money was scarce, but we confronted it unitedly. We shared numerous similarities, family histories, dating experiences, interests, and ambitions. In areas where we differed, we complemented one another. If there were things I struggled with, Jennifer excelled, and the reverse was also true. I handled our finances efficiently, while Jennifer skillfully coordinated our social and family calendars. Our collaboration was smooth, leading to swift enhancements in our lives. Over the ensuing years, we both secured several promotions apiece. Our social circle expanded substantially. We were able to accumulate funds for our initial home purchase while still indulging in travel and entertainment. Our romantic life mirrored the evolution of our relationship, albeit at a gradual pace. From our first date, we shared tender moments such as holding hands and exchanging kisses, which eventually grew more intimate once we became exclusive. After 8 years of marriage, Jennifer resigned from work upon the birth of our son Jacob, followed by our daughter Emily about a year later. We acquired a suburban 3-bedroom house with ample room for a pet. Simultaneously, we purchased a family sedan and a minivan. In essence, our lives were neatly settling down 2 children, a pet, a home, and 2 vehicles. It was unremarkable, yet I couldn't conceive of being any more content. Yet, it turned out that I was mistaken. My advancement to the position of manager occurred shortly following Emily's first birthday. Year after year of fitting in with the ordinary throng without uttering a protest had felt vindicated with my substantial new salary. We recognized its value and didn't squander it carelessly. My work schedule was flexible, primarily working remotely and attending office meetings only for team gatherings of staff and management. It's often said that money can't buy contentment, but it can acquire stylish attire, personal upkeep, superior health care, a modern residence, a more desirable neighborhood, and self-assurance. I rose from mediocrity to slightly above average. My wife, whom I found beautiful already, became slightly above average in my eyes, now striking me as extremely attractive. Our relationship, already strong, escalated. We vacationed more comfortably, invested quality time with our children, and banked more funds for our golden years. When Emily started kindergarten, Jennifer yearned to resume part-time employment. She swiftly secured employment at a startup marketing company where she anticipated enjoying herself. Her tasks were conveniently synchronized with drop-offs and pickups of the children from school, which was an advantageous development. Our financial situation didn't depend on her earnings, allowing us to accrue savings. According to my computations, we were on course for a comfortable retirement by the time our kids completed college. However, 3 months prior to our 15th wedding anniversary, I serendipitously discovered her infidelity on my birthday of all days, though it was actually uncovered 2 days earlier. It took me several weeks to comprehend and connect the pieces of evidence. In the beginning, I didn't give much thought to Jennifer assuming a larger responsibility at her new position. This meant she would work a few extra hours per week, and I was fine with picking up the children from school. This change didn't cause significant disruption in my routine. Approximately 3 months into her new role, I noticed she appeared preoccupied frequently, prompting me to inquire about it. She disclosed she was adapting to her new job and experiencing some stress. To alleviate her pressure at home, I chose to handle additional domestic tasks. As our intimate life started to lessen significantly, we had a discussion about it. She confided that she was aging and no longer felt the urgency for closeness as often. It was the first time I heard her utter the F word, but things did improve temporarily. However, our physical intimacy dwindled again after a short while. I hesitated to raise the matter again due to potential conflict. On the brink of desperation, I discovered a present. The weather had turned chilly, and I was searching for one of my sweaters. I'd been doing the laundry and occasionally misplaced clothes in the wrong closet. While sorting through sweaters in her wardrobe, I found it concealed behind several old shoe boxes. The distinctive pink box tied with a white ribbon from the lingerie store caught my attention, along with the card addressed to Lover. A moment of internal debate ensued over whether to open it or not. I eventually decided to peek inside. I wasn't confident about waiting until my birthday to experience my wife. Upon reading the card, please disregard the packaging of this gift for now. Save the unwrapping of your actual present for your birthday when I will be wearing what's in the box. Then you can take my virginity. Yours always, Jennifer. For the following 48 hours, I made a special effort to please her. I greeted her with flowers upon arrival, gave her a foot massage, and prepared her favorite meal. However, her reaction wasn't as warm as I had expected. Instead, it appeared she was merely enduring my affections. On my birthday, I made sure the children completed their homework ahead of time to prevent any distractions during my gift presentation. Jennifer arrived home late from work that day, and her question about dinner left me perplexed. Despite feigning along, I was eagerly awaiting my surprise. Proposing a pizza outing, which sparked joy in the children, we ventured out. Michael had colluded with our waitress, and as we were about to leave, the staff serenaded me with "Happy Birthday" as a surprise. My wife seemed taken aback, but quickly regained her composure, saying she would give my present later. The car ride home was tense, nearly resulting in an accident. The following quarter hour of waiting for the children to prepare for bed was grueling, and the subsequent 15 minutes waiting for them to fall asleep were excruciating. Fortunately, Jennifer returned from an urgent trip to buy milk shortly after the children had dozed off. Upon reaching the bedroom door, Jennifer was absent. I sat on the bed, growing increasingly irritated by the games. When would I receive my gift? From the bathroom emerged a woman wearing a long flannel nightgown, bare-faced and her hair tied in a ponytail. At this juncture, I was growing increasingly agitated about the predicament. When would I receive my gift? She moved into the bed, pulled the covers over herself, reached for the lamp on her nightstand, then hesitated. Almost forgot, she seemed to realize. From a drawer on her nightstand, she took a compact box wrapped in the multicolored balloon paper we had used for Michael's last birthday celebration. She handed it to me, saying, "Happy birthday, dear." With that, she rolled over, switched off her lamp, and went to sleep. I was too stunned to even open her gift. The following day, my depression struck hard. I relived the events of the previous day, trying to understand why I had spoiled our evening. Feeling utterly lost, I mired in self-pity for almost 2 weeks. The present seemed to torment me, serving as a continual reminder of my error. Despite common sayings such as, "The husband is the last to know," I confess I was completely oblivious. The notion of Jennifer being unfaithful was so alien, it never entered my mind. Yet, when she called home 13 days after my birthday saying, "It's Alan Henderson's 30th birthday, and the staff are taking him out to celebrate. I might be home late." The words seemed strange, but I don't recall my response or walking to the bedroom closet. What I do remember is standing before an empty space where my present had been. Also etched in my memory is the agonizing pain in my chest and rushing to the bathroom to vomit. For longer than I care to admit, I feared I was having a heart attack, wishing momentarily for such an escape from the torment. Alan Henderson, Jennifer's boss, was a smooth yet somewhat sleazy-looking advertising executive, a few years younger than both Jennifer and me. Met him seldomly and vividly recalled disliking him due to perceived insincerity in his speech. Snapped out of my thoughts by Emily, "Are you all right, Daddy?" She stood above me, close to tears. Took moments for eyes to focus. She was my daughter. Assured her I was fine, upset stomach from food, needed minutes to tidy up. Recall little after leaving the bathroom. Remember grabbing dusty scotch bottle. Headache next day proved I drank several glasses, unaware when Jennifer returned home. Found her in kitchen feeding kids next morning, acting normal, following routine. Subtle wince she displayed while eating shattered any lingering affection. Subtly present yet palpable, it was there. I can't assert that I directly addressed my unfaithful spouse, but I remained paralyzed. Stricken with sorrow, all I could muster was a change of scene, and no solace came for many weeks. Each day, I wandered like an undead creature, witnessing my wife perform her daily routines at home without an inkling of care. My desolation intensified, convincing me I had reached the pinnacle of despair. It wasn't until our 15th wedding anniversary weekend that I finally found the resolve to act. In hindsight, I had been acting cowardly. I recognized my behavior for what it was, and there might be a psychological term for it. If my father were still alive, he would have labeled me a fool, and he would have been correct. My mental haze dissipated when my wife casually mentioned her need to travel for a work conference during our anniversary. Though I can't pinpoint why, it irked me. It felt like another blow of disrespect. Her blatant disregard for the date inflicted pain. On our anniversary night, overwhelmed by grief and turning to alcohol, I awoke the next day enraged, having reached my limit. I phoned my lawyer and arranged a meeting. Determined to conclude this facade, I believed that my life had hit rock bottom. However, I discovered it was far worse than I imagined upon entering my attorney's office. The iron resolve I carried was swiftly replaced by shocking disbelief. I knew divorces could be tough, but I thought my wife's affair would aid my cause. Contrarily, my lawyer systematically weakened my case. I lacked solid evidence of the affair, and even if I had, it wouldn't carry significant weight. Our assets were likely to be divided equally. I couldn't prove my wife unfit as a parent, leaving shared custody as the best option. Our income discrepancy favored my spouse, meaning I would have to pay alimony and child support. She was more likely to obtain primary custody and keep the house for the kids. Feeling deceived and forsaken, it appeared my wife escaped any consequences. My emotions morphed from melancholic to utterly despondent. Even my unfaithful spouse noticed my exhaustion after several weeks, asking, "You seem drained, Michael. Is there something troubling you?" I feigned a response of, "No, dear." At least she pretended to show concern while I merely existed in life. Subsequently, I lost my job, a reality that was unbeknownst to me initially. Remarkably, this event proved to be the best thing that ever occurred for me. A spark of optimism emerged from an unlikely quarter, the nightly news. As I watched a string of disheartening stories mirroring my mood, one story captivated my attention. A significant East Coast corporation had filed for bankruptcy. Their former employees were struggling to receive their final wages and fretting about their pensions. For once, it felt as if others might be in an even more dire situation than myself. Then the news analyst shared his insights. The employees may secure a court victory against their past employer, yet it would be irrelevant due to the absence of financial resources. Swiftly recognizing this predicament, I devised a rudimentary strategy. In essence, my spouse could not endure what was non-existent. Since we possessed no assets, we would divide nothing. Indeed, I was relinquishing my portion, but given that I was destined to lose half anyway, did the remainder truly matter? My plan initially appeared straightforward. Jobless and uninterested in seeking employment, I opted to deplete our savings until they vanished. I acknowledge it was an imprudent decision, and even I harbored reservations about its feasibility, yet it provided solace. 2 years can seem like an endless duration. It was painfully tedious for me, particularly since I spent most of the time alone. It gradually became apparent that Jennifer served as the vitality of our social circle. As she distanced herself from me, I found myself bereft of meaningful friendships. As an only child who lost both parents at a young age, I felt profoundly alone. Sparing you the lengthy narrative of my daily struggles during those 2 years, suffice it to say they were extremely grim. The solitary exception was the presence of my children. Prior to this period, I had always been frugal, saving every penny and keeping receipts for all purchases. However, I noticed that our funds weren't depleting fast enough to make a substantial impact. I realized I excelled at saving but not at spending. Consequently, I chose to revamp my strategy. I enrolled in an executive MBA program at a pricey local university, which set me back approximately $120,000. I also purchased a luxury SUV in full, amounting to $60,000. Additionally, I established educational savings accounts for my children at a cost of $260,000. Furthermore, I indulged in a new wardrobe and regularly withdrew substantial amounts of cash twice weekly. It's worth noting that this money was not primarily used for gambling. Instead, I spent a minimal amount occasionally to maintain amusement. My aim was to seem as though I had spent the day at a casino, so I acquired receipts for meals, snacks, and parking fees. However, most of the funds were stored in a wall safe within our garage, acting as my personal emergency fund following the divorce. Another significant expense was employing full-time private surveillance on my wife and her lover. I requested an extensive package that encompassed video recordings, photographs, and daily records of events. I find it somewhat shameful to acknowledge the high cost of this service. You may question whether she noticed my spending patterns, but she likely did, except regarding gambling. I shared the details of the funds transferred to our kids for their custodial accounts since her signature was required. She noticed my new vehicle and attire, yet didn't comment on them. It seemed she assumed I was still employed and we were maintaining a satisfactory lifestyle. In turn, I remained silent about her personal purchases. My curiosity often pondered who might be profiting from her increased lingerie acquisitions, but it was an unspoken matter between us. Our interactions stayed pleasant yet detached, similar to roommates with indifferent feelings towards each other. As for our intimate life, it was a subject we never touched upon. My favorite aspect of life was spending quality time with my kids, nurturing their passions whether through homework or playtime activities like parks, bike rides, and movies. As I took over the household cooking duties, my children showed enthusiasm in assisting. I discovered easy-to-follow recipes for us to experiment with, and they readily participated. Jennifer was frequently present during the week, but neither excluded nor specifically included her from our casual gatherings. If she chose to join, she did so without any extra effort on my part. I received a weekly report outlining my wife's activities. Initially, I assumed she was involved with her supervisor, but it turned out she had been socializing with multiple men from her workplace. A few months later, even the company's clients started appearing on her social schedule. It hardly caused pain. I hadn't held a high opinion of her to begin with. The revelation didn't significantly impact me. The videos were poorly produced and failed to excite me. It became clear that Alan Henderson was not an expert lover, despite his multiple romantic encounters. This came as a surprise. Assuming the present she acquired suggested a romantic involvement between him and my spouse, yet it seemed to be casual encounters instead. He maintained interactions with her, despite his stature being slightly less than average, while she passively participated. This pattern held true for the majority of the 6 men associated with my wife. However, there was an exception, a man who appeared nerdy with glasses and a pocket protector, enhancing his geek image, seemed unusually eager with Jennifer. Although pictures and recordings were too blurry to determine her pleasure, it seemed excruciatingly unpleasant to me. A year into this ordeal, I recognized that I hadn't experienced any joy. It didn't particularly upset me. It simply became another burden in my miserable life. After a year, I decided to halt the surveillance. I had witnessed enough, and analyzing the data had transformed into a tedious task filled with trivia. Despite attending classes, caring for children, and gambling, I found myself with ample free time. I concentrated on contemplating my life post-marriage, anticipating its eventual conclusion. Subsequently, I initiated a new fitness regimen. I had always maintained a reasonable level of fitness, but nothing extraordinarily impressive. Over the course of time, I managed to make noticeable improvements in my bench press and running endurance. I held the belief that possessing massive muscles and good looks were largely inherited traits, clearly not characteristics I possessed. Regardless, I was content with my physical appearance. I delved into the most recent developments within my past profession, as I assumed I would require employment again. My absence for a year had left me further behind than I had anticipated. Each day, I devoted several hours to acquiring knowledge about the latest technologies and software applications. My curiosity particularly piqued towards CTS, my old company. It appeared they were experiencing a plateau. They weren't losing market share, and their revenues remained consistent, but they weren't making substantial advancements. In the tech industry, standing still equates to falling behind. I dedicated a significant portion of my time towards exploring aspects of divorce. Though I brainstormed innovative yet dubious strategies for managing my presumed ex-wife's situation, I primarily focused on understanding how divorce influences children. Having already processed most of my emotional turmoil, the kids had played a crucial role in this healing process. I wanted to ensure I was adequately prepared when their transition occurred. Although abundant data is accessible, a considerable part of it proved unproductive. Approximately 8 months into this phase, I started experiencing apprehension. My wife resumed regular homecomings and initiated discussions about my daily life. Despite my brief responses, she continued to probe. She began adopting more alluring nightwear, seemingly attempting to rekindle the intimacy we once shared. Matters deteriorated further after a few weeks. For over a year, she had been detached and merely maintaining appearances. She began expressing concerns about our inadequate communication and suggested working on our marriage. In reply, I opted for silence. Her attempts to reconcile persisted until her birthday. I placed her gift on the dining room table, wrapping it with the same paper she had used for my last present. The contents of the item were not unexpected. It took me 6 months to open the last birthday gift she gave me, a low-priced digital watch. When I spotted a similar watch in the impulse buy section of our local 24-hour store, priced at $9.95, I initially felt annoyed, but when I found they also had a matching women's model, my bitterness subsided. I bought it and saved it for 18 months before giving it to her. Regrettably, I missed seeing her reaction, as the kids and I had an unexpected late-night movie event that day, and she had already left by the time we woke up. My daily life swiftly settled into a new routine. Jennifer increasingly devoted long hours at work, resulting in scant communication at home. Then came the declaration, "Michael, I'm filing for divorce." I had imagined she would be brief about it, but instead, it took almost a week for the petition to arrive. I found the delay somewhat amusing. The petition requested spousal and child support, an unequal division of assets in her favor, pointed out mental and emotional abuse, and was served with these factors cited. I opted to wait until Monday to take the kids camping, as I wished to shield them from the escalating situation. Upon our return 6 days later, feeling refreshed, we found Jennifer at home. She sat alone in the living room, appearing unwell. It was uncertain which aspect of my retaliation took her aback the most. In response, I had filed for divorce as well, citing adultery, demanding the house, our principal asset, and full custody of the children. I too asked for alimony and child support since I was jobless and had been looking after the children full-time for 2 years. Furthermore, I started lawsuits based on alienation of affection against Jennifer's 7 romantic partners, even though I knew these suits were unlikely to succeed. I also launched civil lawsuits against her employer and the 3 companies associated with clients who were involved with my wife. While I didn't expect to win, I hoped the negative publicity would aid me. Lastly, I sent a DVD containing incriminating footage of Jennifer to her parents and best friend as a warning that I wasn't afraid to use it. Despite all the evidence being mentioned in my counterclaim, I wanted to remove any potential loopholes. The children went to their rooms for bedtime snacks without giving much notice to their mother. and she made no effort to interact with them. I fetched a beer from the fridge, then seated myself opposite Jennifer in the living room. Jennifer, I don't harbor hatred towards you. Hatred necessitates effort. To be candid, I haven't exerted any effort in relation to you. All my energy is directed towards self-care and my children. However, I am your spouse, Cease. I won't tolerate anyone sullying my wife's good reputation. My wife was a loving, caring individual, my dearest friend, partner, and mother of my kids. She's gone. You've assumed her position, but don't behave as if you have any bond with me. It took some time before she spoke again. What should I do now? Is that a rhetorical question, or are you genuinely seeking my advice? I didn't allow her to respond before continuing. I assume there are multiple possible resolutions for your situation. You could relocate far away and endeavor to create a new life. That's the path I'd take. Regardless of my objection to my children spending time with you, it shouldn't influence your choice to depart. Another option is to endure here, persisting in the town, attempting to maintain a positive image. However, the risk exists that people may learn about your past transgressions or refuse to hire someone like you. You might find someone willing to tolerate your reputation, but what sort of person would that be? An alternative could be self-reflection, though I sincerely hope you don't opt for that route. It would deprive me of the satisfaction of seeing you suffer, as you deserve. Yet, it's questionable whether my opinion matters to someone as reckless as you. Indeed, it didn't when you chose to involve yourself with your superior. I had been contemplating delivering that speech for months. I should have reveled in the opportunity to say it, witnessing each word break whatever was left of her willpower. Despite harboring hopes for fulfillment, I found emptiness instead. Concluding this account, post-divorce life presented its shares of triumphs and tribulations. My litigation outcomes surpassed initial predictions. In total, I received a little over $1 million in settlements from the 3 corporations whose staff were linked to my former spouse. This was unexpected, as my attorney had counseled me not to expect much. Upon examination, it became clear that they sought to avoid unfavorable publicity following our handling of my ex-wife's business. We managed to dismantle her company by employing legal strategies such as discovery motions, depositions, and disseminating information to the media. I initiated a discreet tactic, contacting the CEOs of the company's remaining clients, providing them details regarding my wife, her boss, and their illicit activities with the question, "Is it wise to continue your affiliation with this firm when trouble brews?" Over time, their financial situation weakened. Employees distancing themselves from the scandal resigned. Eventually, the company filed for bankruptcy. Alan Henderson was fired disgracefully and departed. Although the $200,000 payment I received paled in comparison to my other successes, it brought me immense satisfaction. I gained nothing from the alienation of affection lawsuits I filed, as I had not anticipated any rewards. However, 4 women eventually secured significant settlements and divorces. The journey was not only filled with triumphs, but also tribulations. I too experienced hardships, including confrontations with people aware of my predicament, which were not rare. The derision and ridicule I endured for a while were particularly harsh. It's uncertain if it was fortunate or unfortunate that I didn't feel strongly about the situation. Already grappling with feelings of failure, others' criticisms held little weight over me. Some of the comments were surprisingly clever. I managed to protect my children from most of the negative fallout, as their well-being had always been paramount. They were distressed for a spell, but bounced back promptly. My crowning achievement was my reinstatement at CTS as Vice President of Design and Development. To divert my personal turmoil, I delved back into programming. Over the past 2 years, I developed an add-on for CTS's primary software, enabling seamless integration with 2 leading software solutions from competing firms. I established a business and began promoting my innovation. Within a year, all 3 companies extended acquisition proposals for my company and my software. I pocketed $11 million for my company and received a lucrative remuneration package from CTS. Initially, I considered retiring, but my minimal social interactions suggested I might isolate myself without a daily reason to go out. An augmented income enabled me to employ a kind old woman, Mrs. Marlene Jensen, who doubled as both a part-time housekeeper and nanny for the kids. After a year, she moved into our guest suite above the garage in our new residence, taking on a grandmotherly role for my children. She was typically warm and soft yet firm when required. Her life experience offered valuable guidance that I sought during decisions. I strove to be a loving father to my cherished kids while also being emotionally damaged and cynical. Over time, as they matured into balanced adults, our proximity diminished. Despite this, I bore no ill feelings. For 15 years, Mrs. Jensen was an integral part of my life, working for me until her retirement upon the children's departure for college. In return, I offered her free housing and meals as a pension substitute. Yet, I chose to keep emotional distance, suppressing bitterness in the face of her attempts to persuade me to engage in life and seek companionship. Eventually, she left knowing that I would remain single. Post her passing, my relationships remained shallow and unfulfilling, with friendships scarcely going beyond the surface. My dating experiences were minimal, consisting mainly of group outings orchestrated by casual acquaintances. Over time, people perceived me as a hardened, relentless figure best avoided. I was aware that this reputation was self-inflicted. I catered to my sexual needs effectively through a consistent rotation of companions, commonly known as call girls. I paid them handsomely for their time and services, occasionally developing brief interactions with them before parting ways. One among them, known as Candy, but whose real name was Mary Beth, had piqued my interest for a while. She was fiery and cooperative, and it felt our bond transcended the usual client-service provider dynamic. Yet, I couldn't impose my emotional struggles on another, so I severed ties when I detected her growing overly attached. As for Jennifer, she grappled with personal issues. For nearly a year, she tried to contact me, though I can't precisely say why. Perhaps she yearned for reconciliation or sought connections with my children. It's plausible, but I had made my boundaries clear. I monitored her actions in Chicago, even instigating investigations whenever she applied for employment to track her work history thoroughly. Immediately after she began dating, I sent care packages to her potential suitors, disclosing extensive details about the woman they were inviting into their lives. I didn't have a preference for whether they decided to keep her or not, but I felt it was important that she couldn't escape her past by overlooking it since I had to face it daily. One of her possible partners tried to challenge me for harassing my former wife. He arrived at my doorstep under the influence of alcohol and physically shoved me as I opened the door, causing me to stumble back. This was a significant mistake on his part. As previously stated, I have no military or martial arts background, nor do I have a propensity for violence, and I had never engaged in a physical altercation before. At that moment, an uncontrollable fury and deep-seated animosity towards my wife and her lovers consumed me. Unfortunately, he found himself on the receiving end of my wrath, resulting in a visible black eye. Remarkably, he managed to survive. He admitted guilt for misdemeanor assault and illegal entry, earning probation as a first-time offender. The prolonged reconstructive surgeries and rehabilitation appeared to have left an indelible mark on him. Jennifer never bothered to contact me again. I stopped tracking her activities a year later, once she found stable employment cleaning rooms at a highway motel in a Virginia town nestled deep within its backwoods, about 700 miles from me. The only other time I encountered her was 16 years later, during my daughter's wedding. I am aware that my children rekindled their relationship with Jennifer several years after graduating from college, and I took no steps to prevent them from finding her. Over the years, she seemed to bear the weight of time poorly. Her added weight and deep wrinkles around her mouth, along with other indicators of smoking, were evident. Despite her aged appearance, I could still discern the woman to whom I had once pledged my affection. Although I felt no emotion towards her, her identity was familiar. At the wedding ceremony, she was seated alone in the bridal section of the church, near the rear. Her interaction with my daughter was brief, polite yet restrained. She didn't attempt to converse with me. Throughout the evening, we maintained a distance of around 30 feet until the event concluded. At that point, she was waiting for a cab outside. I spotted the small gold band and tiny diamond on her left ring finger, which brought a rare smile to my face. Maybe she had weathered better than me, given the presence of the ring. I strolled towards her, appreciating the ring for a while. Looking into her eyes, I saw deep sorrow reflected back at me. You were the one who destroyed my life initially. Noticing her bare left hand, then returning my gaze, I said, I truly wish you found someone who brings you joy. Exiting swiftly to my car, where my driver patiently waited. Good evening, Mr. Smith. I presume your night was enjoyable, sir. Ready for the club? Replied Jonathan. Instead, let's head straight home. Tonight, I prefer solitude. As you wish, sir. As we departed, I averted my gaze, but managed a brief acknowledging wave from her. Thank you.